I just knew I had to. For a long time, the label alcoholic was not helpful for me at all, and I know it's not helpful for a lot of people. But for me to actually maintain sobriety, it was useful because there was no there was no wriggle room.
Yeah.
The problem was the wriggle room for me.
Yeah.
You know, and the wriggle room for me about whether I was or whether I wasn't, or, you know, whatever. So it just had to be, I'm not a black and white thinker at all. I'm all shades of grey, but it had to be black and white for me. So, and I know different mindsets work for different people. So when I came out, I was just like, I'd scared myself as to the place that I was in before, and I didn't want to go back there. And I worried that I wouldn't make it if I did. You know, which sounds sort of like incredibly dramatic, but I was, because I was in such emotional turmoil and pain and everything, that I just thought, I that level of sort of desperation and everything, I just didn't want to go back there. I'd scared myself that the place that I was at.
Boom. Welcome everybody to another episode of Real Drug Talk. So today, really cool. So just so you know, and I've said this a few times, but I've got like podcast recording psychosis at the moment because, as I said to you, Faye, Little Bubs is on the way and we're pumping out some shows so that we have content that goes over that time period that I'm off. And it's just so happened, like we always talk to cool people, but I've been able to chat to like a few people lately in the last couple of days that I've kind of seen on social media from afar that I've really wanted to speak to, but just like haven't had the opportunity, and you're one of those people. So I'm excited to chat today because what you're doing is like very cool, very interesting. And it's just what I think needs to kind of happen in this space is, and it's starting to happen, which is exciting, is not that people before were doing a bad job, people were doing a great job, but I just think there has to be a bit of freshness, excitement, innovative ideas, you know, some new players in the space to make things happen. So Faye's doing that. So I'm just going to embarrass you quickly and read your bio.
Oh, go on then.
So today on the show we've got Faye Lawrance. So she founded Untoxicated, great name, love it, in 2018. Having been a heavy drinker but high functioning drinker since her teens, and wound up in an inpatient detox in late 2017 after the wheels really fell off. Determined to not let her sobriety ruin her social life, Untoxicated was born. Faye's professional background is in marketing, communications, and corporate affairs, predominantly in the non-for-profit sector. She also holds a psychology degree, graduating shortly after she got sober, a social butterfly and a bit of an idealist. She's passionate about building community and believes in a world where everyone belongs. So very, very cool. And as I said to you before we started recording, I obviously had seen it before, but was going through your website a little bit again. And that's kind of the stuff that like I think needs to happen. And it's really cool. Like I've seen it happen in mental health, but it's starting to happen in sobriety and this space. So tell us about Untoxicated. Great name. It's the biggest thing that comes up for people, like the social aspect, you know, so that's really cool. Yeah. Tell us a bit about it.
So much. Well, I think really I just created what I needed, to be honest, Jack.
Love that.
So when, you know, because I'd always been such a social person, and the thought of operating without alcohol and how that was going to impact my social identity and like how I saw myself, as well as like what I actually did in terms of how I did socialize with people, it was a massive deterrent for me and a massive hurdle in like actually, you know, stopping drinking because I just couldn't imagine it. And then when it got to the point where I was like, we can't do denial anymore, this actually does have to be dealt with, and you do have to finally do it, then I was like, well, you know what, you know, I know that this isn't all going to be rainbows and unicorns, but we've still got to be able to have some fun in this thing.
That's right.
And like meet people and do, you know, I needed some new friends as well, because all my friends were sort of, you know, they were mainly people who were quite like to drink or two.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to lose those friendships, but I knew I couldn't do the same things that I was doing before. I had to shift those friendships to daytime stuff. So then I was like, well, you know, I want to focus on all the positive things that I'm gaining. I was trying to shift my mindset, obviously, like, what am I gaining in sobriety? And there was a lot. But, you know, I didn't want to be sat home on a Saturday night going, well, stuff this, you know, if I've got to stay home, then I'm, you know, and be angry about it, basically.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
So I started the face-to-face meetups, and like in the beginning, like literally one person would turn up.
Yeah.
A lot of times I did things.
And where was that you started that?
That was in Brisbane.
Yeah. Nice.
So I live in Brisbane. I've been here for 21 years, and then we quickly opened up one. Well, I say quickly, it was probably almost a year later. 2019 opened up one in Sydney, and then Melbourne followed later that year after we did the 7:30 report. Lots more people sort of got to know about us and what we were doing. And then on the back of that, I opened up the online support, which is the closed Facebook group, and we've got a forum. And so people either tend to come in through the meetup or through the Facebook group.
Yeah.
And it just sort of went from there, really.
Amazing. So I want to come back to that, because all of that is really, really cool and really pertinent to, I think, what kind of needs to change in the space. And I'll be interested to hear how it kind of leads into it. But do you mind just like tell us a little bit about your drinking and sobriety story, and how that all happened and how it all came about, and all those sorts of things?
Sure. Look, I was always quite a pisshead. To be honest, I grew up in a family that, you know, as a lot of UK families and Australian families as well, you know, drinking was sort of fairly central to everything: reward, celebration, commiseration,
100%.
you know, just everything. And so I've got quite a lot of alcoholism in my family as well, on both sides. So it was just normal. And I think that's a lot of people's experience. And, you know, I sort of did think I wasn't going to repeat the patterns, and then I did. But I used it when I came to Australia in 2000, and then, you know, I'd always been quite a party girl, and I had 2 young kids, and I separated from my husband in 2001, and then it was like the stress. You know, the stress was just huge as a single parent with small kids and no support network. And then just over the years, you know, I was always high functioning. I always sort of held it together, but I had a lot of incidents, shall we say. You know, I knocked my 2 front teeth out.
Like blackouts and stuff?
Yeah, blackouts all the time. That was standard. You know, just all the things that we all do. Just behaving badly, throwing up all day. You know, there was a long period there where all day Saturday I would be throwing up.
And it's all the stuff that people forget about, isn't it? Like, I know you said that you knocked your front teeth out, which is kind of funny. You're not in a way now it's funny.
They're not mine.
But I find, like, particularly when I'm talking to people about alcohol, and it's been years and years of it, it's all the little stuff, like just constantly having fucking reflux, throwing up all day, you know, all that sort of stuff. It's just horrible. I mean, I'd go to work, but if I had a hangover, I'd like go out in the car at lunchtime and try and have a nap in the car. Or if someone, you know, like a boyfriend lived nearby, I'd go to his place, have a wine, and then have a quick sleep. So hair of the dog, even if it was a work day, was, you know, not
kind of a big deal for me.
Yeah.
And then towards the end though, so you have like protective factors. So some of those protective factors where the kids were still at home and I was going out to work. And when I lost those protective factors, the kids had left home and I was working from home.
Mm-hmm.
And then I experienced some, you know, sort of unpleasant circumstances. It just then went out of control.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's how it happens, isn't it? And I think it's a really interesting, like, kind of story that you tell about like alcohol use and how it happens for people. And I think that's, I don't know, tell me if you disagree, but I think that's part of the thing that we have to demystify a little bit about addiction. Like when you sort of started, it's not like you were drinking, and it probably, even though you might have been drinking a lot, might not have even been a problem per se, but you're kind of drinking that amount and your risk factors go up. So then when something, like you said, you moved here, you had the separation and then you had the stress and whatever, when you have those other risk factors come in, it's kind of like the perfect storm starts forming. And then all of a sudden, the partying and the drinking, that behavioral pattern turns into like a coping mechanism, and then boom, you're stuck with an addictive pattern.
Yeah, I think I'd had the addictive pattern for quite a long time. Like I'd gone to an AOD counsellor back in 2001, and I was on naltrexone.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, it was sort of, you know, it's not linear, it's in out, shake it all about. It's like, oh my God, I've had something absolutely gut-wrenchingly mortifying and awful, and I'm the worst person in the world. Right, I'm going to go to an AA meeting, and then you get there and you're like, no, I'm not like these people.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, also I grew up in an environment where alcohol and drugs were just part and parcel of you know, just normal. So it just, I would always be, because I surrounded myself with people like me, which isn't hard to do, I would just always dismiss it. And so it was actually almost easier in a way when it got to the point where I just couldn't deny it anymore, because it was black and white. Whereas I think there's a really good analogy in Alan Carr's Easy Way to Stop Drinking, which I think Annie Grace refers to as well, about the pitcher plant.
Yeah.
So you start off and you're kind of like, you still think you're in control. It's that alcohol use disorder, alcohol use, what's it called? Yeah, disorder. They're like the spectrum of alcohol abuse.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're sort of incrementally moving down. So, yeah, I mean, I honestly believe it can happen to anyone. But I think also, particularly if you've got a history of trauma, like you say, it's the perfect recipe. It's a perfect recipe to eventually, because that stuff needs to come out.
Yeah.
And the more you're not addressing it and using the alcohol, the less effective it is. And I remember towards the end just going, this isn't working anymore. It's not working with my anxiety. It's not stopping the feelings from, you know, this just unhappiness.
Yeah. 100%.
It's just not even, it's not fun. There's nothing I'm enjoying about this. And I remember actually sitting out on the deck crying with the wine, like late at night, just going, I don't want this, but I can't stop it.
Yeah. So interesting. But through all this time, were you still holding down, you know, like a corporate job and all that sort of stuff? Or did the wheels start to fall off there as well?
Well, I just finished the degree and I was doing some freelancing. So I was still doing some work, but what I would do was I would have my strategies around how I was able to drink up to a certain point before I got completely shit-faced and then wasn't able to work. So, you know, I would just start off early with like beers so that I didn't get really drunk really quickly. And then I'd still be able to do like some work up until early afternoon.
It's funny, isn't it? It becomes like a full-time job, like just listening to you talk about it. Like you said, like all the strategies, the thinking that goes into it. Oh, just drink beers.
Alternating the bottle shops.
Yeah.
You know, alternating the bottle shops. And I would still try and convince myself each time I went to the bottle shop, because I would only buy one bottle of wine or six beers at a time, because I'd be like, no, I'm not going for another one after this. And I would literally get home, neck it in half an hour and go back out, but to a different one.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So what was the final moment for you where you decided to stop? Was it that time when you're on the deck or on the balcony with the wine and crying, or did it?
It was close to that time. Yeah, I was getting to a stage where I kind of didn't really care if I lived or died.
Yeah.
And I knew it was out of control. I couldn't. It was very evident that, you know, I couldn't pretend otherwise anymore.
Yeah.
Like once I picked up a drink, I didn't know what the outcome was going to be. There was a chance I wouldn't remember, you know, most of the time after that. Probably about half an hour to an hour after that, I wouldn't necessarily, if I'd gone out, I wouldn't remember how I was getting home.
Yeah.
You know, like,
wow.
It was just, who knew what was going to happen after I'd started drinking?
Yeah.
No one.
Yeah.
So I'd really had lost control, and there were a couple of times when one time when I went to emergency because I was in such a mess, and my daughter had to take me, and it was just the shame of it all.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I was in such a lot of emotional pain. I think I just knew it had to end.
Yeah, 100%. So how did you go about that? Like, what was that like? You know, what kind of help did you get?
So I was not coping. So I went to my therapist that I was seeing at the time, a psych that I've been seeing for about 4 years.
Yeah.
And she said to me, you know, and I had been drinking before I went there, and she said to me, I think you've hit rock bottom, basically.
Yeah.
And so then I contacted Biala here in Brisbane, and I said, I need to go in somewhere. I can't do it by myself.
Yeah.
It was past that. I would find a strategy to get out of doing whatever was needed.
Yeah.
And so I went into inpatient detox at the hospital.
Yeah.
But I couldn't get in for 10 days. So I was admitted to emergency, and then a couple of times I was in emergency, and then they said, yeah, because mentally I was not in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and how long did you spend in that facility? And
I think it was about 6 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with detox, as you know, Jack, it's just around the safe withdrawal from the either the drugs or the alcohol. There's not a lot of sort of psychosocial education or anything like that in there. And, you know, most people use it as a stepping stone to go to rehab.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel, well, I actually didn't know I could get rehab on my private health.
Yeah.
But I felt like the circuit breaker was enough of the 6 days.
Yeah. Yeah. So because you mentioned, and this is what I'm interested to talk to you about. And again, like we've been lucky lately to have a few people on the show that sort of, not that it's any different, but I just think it's this, and I don't know if you agree, it's the segment of the community that probably I think experiences the most stigma because they're not recognized as having like an addiction, because in some aspects like yourself, they're able to hold things together. And yeah, that is that sort of professional person or functioning person, all those sorts of things. So how did you, like you mentioned, that you created Untoxicated because it's like what you felt like you needed. So like, what was that experience like after you went to detox? Was it self-determined? Did you speak to anyone? Like, how did you decide what you were going to do to stay sober?
I just knew I had to, for a long time, the label alcoholic was not helpful for me at all. And I know it's not helpful for a lot of people. But for me to actually maintain sobriety, it was useful because there was no there was no wriggle room.
Yeah.
The problem was the wriggle room for me.
Yeah.
You know, and the wriggle room for me about whether I was or whether I wasn't, or, you know, whatever. So it just had to be, I'm not a black and white thinker at all. I'm all shades of grey, but it had to be black and white for me. So, and I know different mindsets work for different people. So when I came out, I was just like, I'd scared myself as to the place that I was in.
Yeah.
Before, and I didn't want to go back there.
Yeah.
And I worried that I wouldn't make it if I did.
Yeah.
You know, which sounds sort of like incredibly dramatic, but I was, because I was in such emotional turmoil and pain and everything, that I just thought, oh, I that level of sort of desperation and everything, I just didn't want to go back there. I'd scared myself that the place that I was at. Yeah. So I came out and I, just threw everything at it, really.
Yeah.
I did a little bit of AA. That wasn't really my cup of tea. And I thought, when I started Untoxicated, I kind of thought, with AA, and I know it works for a lot of people, and I don't like to condemn any particular type of recovery. I think people should absolutely try everything for themselves. I was seeing an AOD counsellor, but I just thought, there's got to be some fun in recovery as well. And I thought, I know if someone tells me what to do, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have something that was using a carrot approach, not a stick approach, in that drawing people to it because it was something that they actually thought was like appealing, as opposed to, oh God, I've got to go, because we're not a recovery program, but I mean, obviously it is part of what people use if they are either in recovery or trying to cut back. So I didn't want it to be, I wanted it to be something that was a bit lighter and a bit more removing that stigma, because I was like, fuck this, I'm not going to be, I'm not, the sobriety needs a bit of a makeover. Like, who says that this stuff's boring? Who decided that? No, I don't agree. And so I'm going to do something about it.
Love it. No, it's perfect. And it's funny, right? Like, it's something that so many people say to me when they come through our program or just talking to people out in the community or whatever, like, and you're right. Like I'm the same. I've tried to be conscious about it as well, because I did like 12-step stuff for a long time, and it helped me like change everything. But that, like, there's some points about it that just a lot of people don't gel with, and it's not like bagging it or whatever, but I think that's a thing. Like, there's a certain type of person that doesn't want to go to like a community hall for the rest of their life, doesn't want to talk about like bad stuff that, consistently happened to them for 20 years or whatever. And they're looking for some fun, for some other like-minded people. And it's just something that's missing,
Yeah, I think there's a couple of parts there. I think that there's a lot of people that don't, want to get off the hamster wheel early. So they don't want to reach rock bottom and need to go to AA.
That's right.
And so we've got to provide them options to be able to do that.
And that's a massive segment of the community.
It's a massive segment. It is huge. And so if those people ever did walk through the doors of a meeting, they would go like I used to do, which is like, I don't belong here. This isn't, I'm not, no. And then they don't go back. And or they kind of go like, oh, I haven't got a problem. I'm nowhere near as bad as these people. I'm only necking a bottle of wine a night. God. So I think that we need to give people opportunities to get out earlier.
Yeah.
And those people aren't necessarily people who are going to identify with the kind of terminology we use around addiction.
Yeah.
So we want to give them a way to get off that's in a non-threatening way. That's not like, oh, you've now got to be, classed as an addict, or but what invariably happens is those people will start, say, coming to our stuff, and then they'll start tapping into other resources, because
that's right,
all the other stuff comes up.
That's right.
But at the entry point, they might not be ready for that. And I think the other thing is that for people who are in recovery, even if you are in a program, and again, I don't want to bag AA, I found it really useful at the outset just to be around people who understood and to be able to go and have a rant.
100%.
But how unfair it was that I now couldn't drink. But there's not a lot socially, even for people who are in recovery.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, it's been cool. I don't know if there's anything up in Brisbane. It would be great. It would be your company name would be a great name for the venue. But in Melbourne, there's been a couple of sober bars open, which is cool.
Oh, the Brunswick Aces,
yeah. And I think there's another one somewhere as well that I saw. So I'm interested to see how they go. But I was talking to someone else about it the other day. It's almost like it's been a really good thing, particularly with alcohol, you know, that it's kind of come along with like the wellness movement, you know, and it's sort of fit into that category. And you're exactly right. Like there's just that massive population of people that are not like in the completely fucked. They're not like suicidal and whatever, but they do have like some issues going on, and it needs to be framed in a different way. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
I think because of the shame and stigma, those people sometimes won't help seek until they do reach rock bottom. So we need to be more open and start reducing that, so that it's much more like we have with mental health.
100%.
For example, where people are like, oh yeah, you know, this is normal to experience some mental health stuff. I'm going to go to my GP and get a mental health care plan, or you know, whatever they might tap into Beyond Blue or whatever it is.
Yeah.
We have to start doing that with addiction as well.
Yeah, 100%. So would you say that you sort of subscribe to that notion or that way of thinking about it, that let's call them, I'm almost moving towards not even calling it addiction these days, like calling it like addictive patterns or something, I don't know, but that you're on kind of like a spectrum of addiction, and that you can at any different moment, due to anything that might happen or go on in and around your life, you can move up and down the spectrum, you know. Is that kind of how you think about it, or do you think about it in a different way, like the disease concept? Or
I don't think about it as a disease concept. I'm very much in line with, you know, the work of Gabor Mate, Bessel van der Kolk, which is around the body keeps the score, the trauma stuff, all the trauma stuff.
Yeah.
From what I've seen in this space, lots of people are using it, to the alcohol or other substances, whatever it is, to deal with their essentially their inner pain and or mental health stuff.
Yeah, 100%.
And so that's, you know, it's like, right, okay, well, what's underneath the surface of that? That's what needs to be addressed. But you can't really do it. I mean, I was in therapy for a long time, but really until you stop drinking or using, you're not going to make the cut through, because you're still hurting yourself on a regular basis. So it's essentially self-harm. And you can't, how can you cultivate like a good relationship with yourself when you're still hurting yourself daily?
Yeah.
And so you can't address those other things, because you need to learn the self-compassion and you know, all the other things that we do in recovery. And the tools and the growth and everything. Just can't do when you're stuck in the pattern of. But so I think it is like a sort of a spectrum, I think.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you say that, because I completely subscribe to that notion of like that it's not just about getting sober to get sober. Like there's a purpose to the sober, which is to give you the blank canvas to work on all the other stuff. And you're right, I found the same thing, that it's really hard to kind of truly work through stuff properly if you're still putting drugs and alcohol into your system and kind of creating a bit of a smokescreen in there. It's sort of like trying to drive around the streets in extreme fog without any headlights on, you know what I mean? It's just tricky to kind of navigate it.
Because a lot of it is about that sort of looking after yourself.
Yeah.
And having your own back. It's sort of reparenting in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And that's why sometimes I get a little bit frustrated with like influencers and things like that on, you know, and I know it absolutely has to play a part. And I love this new movement, the Sober Curious that's coming through and all of that.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes people can think, the perception can be, oh, I just dropped my alcohol-free, you know, my alcoholic drink for an alcohol-free one, and that's all I got to do.
Yeah.
And that's not, for most people,
yeah,
what you got to do.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. It's a good point. And like, I reckon where we have to sort of get to it for just, if you think about it in like a public health sense for the general population, for all those people that are, you know, not at the pointy end and they're moving up and down the spectrum, and even for the people that are at the pointy end, is yeah, like a bit more like physical health, you know. So last night in Melbourne, it was fucking freezing. I'm getting soft. I must admit.
Oh, I know. I'm with you. I love Melbourne, but I could not live in the cold again after England.
That's right.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, like last night, I think it was about maybe 10 degrees out, or even a bit cooler, 9 or something. It's probably not advisable to go outside in weather like that without a jumper on, because you're going to catch a cold, you know? So I've been saying it a bit, but it's sort of how I've been thinking about, you know, alcohol and drugs for people as they move on just in life. And it's hard to kind of get your head around. But yeah, if you've had an argument with your significant other, your partner, or if you're stressed the fuck out at work, or if you're struggling with some mental health stuff, or you're under a lot of pressure with like a exam, or I don't know, maybe it's not advisable to like have a couple of wines that night, because it's actually that stuff underneath that is sort of like the fuel to the fire.
It is, but the problem is, if you've never learned healthy coping mechanisms, which I hadn't, because I've been drinking from teenage years and drugs, and just recreational drugs, and if you've never actually learned ways to do that, that just feels like another thing that you've got to do. Like, I'm already stressed out, I'm studying, I'm working full time, I've got kids, I've got health, blah, 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 blah. I can't take the time to go and do yoga or do meditation or whatever it is. It just feels like another thing to add to your pile.
Yeah.
And so, you just want the quick fix.
Yeah, 100%. So just changing gears slightly,
Sure.
What's it like being the Untoxicated person and sort of having that as a part of your identity now? As you said, like out in the social community, you did the 7:30 report. What was that like? Yeah, like how's the whole process been?
Yeah, that was a couple of years ago. Look, I mean, I'm not going to lie, it's been quite stressful.
Yeah.
Because we became a charity earlier this year.
Oh, congratulations.
And, thank you. So we're a health promotion charity. So I've left my job to make this work.
Yeah.
And that's quite a hard bit.
100%.
Yeah. So, but for the most part, I love it, because I think we need to. I love. So in the Facebook group, I'm quite involved in that community.
Yeah.
And I just, I've always liked helping people, which is why I was doing the psych degree anyway, to support people in their troubles. And I just believe in people. I believe in self-actualization. I believe in holding space for people in a non-judgmental way. I think we need to, people they've already judged themselves so much by the time they get to that point where they're actually help seeking, that I think just letting them know that it's okay.
Yeah.
And I love all that. I love the opportunity to help shift the narrative.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed it. I mean, I never thought it was going to end up like this, like it has.
Yeah.
But it feels like it's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. And I always love hearing people's like journeys and stories, as well, because it's kind of interesting to me how all the different things that you've kind of done in your life, good and bad, lead to like this moment in terms of, like when and for everyone, I encourage you to go check out, the website if you haven't seen it already, join the groups and all that stuff. Like, you've had the background in marketing, you've now done the degree in psych stuff. And like I go and look at the thing, it's a great name for it. The branding looks cool. You obviously understand different things about, like addiction from a personal and professional standpoint. So it's just really cool to kind of
meld it all together.
Meld it all together. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I do love it. Yeah.
So what do you guys actually do at the moment? Like I see you got like a few things going on too. Like I said to you before we started recording, it's almost, it's like a movement, but it has, that support services like built into it as well, which is cool.
Yeah. So we do the online peer support. We do face-to-face meetups in Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane. We're wanting to expand this year. We constantly get requests for new groups. I'm developing another online platform at the moment where people will be able to have confidentiality, because I want to shift more off Facebook. So I'm working on that, trying to get funding for the charity or a corporate partnership or something. So that we can actually stay afloat would be good.
So anybody listening that's cashed up,
give us some money, please. I mean, we've got 10,000 members.
Amazing.
The meetup groups and the Facebook group. And then obviously our social channels as well on top of that. So there's a lot of people out there that want this sort of thing. So I'm just sort of trying, and I'm going to be training to become a sober coach as well. I'm starting that. Is it this month? No, June. So that's another thing. And I'm just sort of seeing where it goes, really. I mean, I can't predict where it's going to go. I'm just sort of trying to have faith in the universe and let it all unfold.
No, it's super cool. And hey, I'd like to say thanks for doing it, because you're right. Like, that's the reality to all these things. I always sort of giggle to myself when people say we need this, we need that, blah, blah, blah. But to actually kind of put it together from just a commercial standpoint and sort of make it work, make it something that's cool that people need, but then also make it viable. It's really tough. And that social, particularly that kind of group social element where you're like out doing activities to make it feasible and all that stuff. It's hard, but I just think it's great that you're doing it, because I haven't seen too much of that. Like I've seen like the online communities and stuff. It's so hard
to make it work. That's
why.
Right. That's why people don't do it.
That's right.
Because they're sensible. So we're all solely volunteer. We're all solely volunteer led. So everyone's a volunteer. All the hosts are volunteers. I think pretty much all the hosts. So these are people that host the face-to-face meetups have lived experience. And generally they're people that do want to give back, as people do in these sorts of communities. But I think a really important part of what we do, as well as obviously the social connection and the community, is people seeing that there's other people like them.
That's right. That are normal and not freaks.
That are normal.
Yeah.
Because I think, A, they think they're the only ones going through this, and B, they think other people who are going through it are, people that are sort of the perceptions of.
That's right. What you see in the movies, stuff like that.
Yeah, all of that. And even if, even just people who aren't at sort of, the rock bottomy type stage, really problematic drinkers. Because the other thing is, we don't ask why people come. We just say anyone can come as long as you're no drinking at the event. So what that means actually is we get people who are just don't like drinking. So it reduces, you're not by coming along identifying as someone who's got a problem with alcohol necessarily.
I love that. That's amazing. That's awesome. And I think that's what needs to change, because personally, that's what I've found as well. Like, I find that other people are more uncomfortable with me not drinking than I'm uncomfortable about it. Like if I go out and the part about it that I hate so much, even though it is kind of the founding reason of me not drinking. If I go out and meet new people with like my wife's friends or something, and I'm like, and they're like, oh, like, do you want to drink? And you say no, they just assume that you're like, yeah, that you had a problem with alcohol, basically. And that might not be the reason for a lot of people.
Right.
It might be just like, no, they just don't like it. And that's
I
okay as well.
Honestly, I swear to God, I was shocked when people were coming and they just didn't like drinking.
Yeah.
Like, who are you? But yeah, I've been quite surprised. And the sort of feedback that we've had is, it's just such a relief to be able to go to a dinner or something and not be pressured.
Yeah.
Because I don't, I'm happy just to have one. And so obviously they have none at ours and they're happy with that.
Yeah.
But it just takes the pressure away. So the irony here is people who are at either ends,
yeah,
they've that awful amount of pressure. So whether you're a non-drinker or you're someone who's a heavy drinker, you're going to get that pressure from others around you. And what that means then is that you're likely to stay home and avoid.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't have to.
100%. So, what kind of activities do you guys do when you go?
Everything. We do everything. So what I say to hosts is, look, play to your strengths, do the sorts of things that you like to do. So, I mean, just some of the things off the top of my head. We've got a camping weekend coming up because lots of people associate obviously drinking with camping. So for a lot of people, it's the first time they've ever done it without alcohol.
Wow.
We do a lot of things like dinners because people need to start rewiring their experiences, their neural pathways around that. Movies, we've got mountain biking. We try and do some things that are more male centric because men are sort of less likely to it's nice for men to be in an environment where there's a lot of other men and they feel comfortable.
100%.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of hosts that do those sorts of things. We've had mocktail making classes. We've had the Brunswick Aces. We've had a visit to that. We've got
nice.
No Lights, No Lycra thing coming up with the dancing in the dark. We've disco, roller discos. It's just whatever's on. Art galleries. We've had a singles night. It really is just, there's just so much. We do lots of creative stuff as well. It's just, all sorts. You name it, we do it.
Brilliant. Love it. So the other question I wanted to ask you, and sort of the last thing, because again, the thing I like about what you're doing is providing these kind of practical solutions, but making it cool and sort of making a bit of a movement out of it as well. So I saw a post where you, I think it was on LinkedIn, you were like talking to a crowd, or maybe it was Facebook, I can't remember. So what's sort of the message that has to go out around alcohol, do you think, and like, how do you actually go about shifting these perceptions and the understanding that we have about addiction in the community and just alcohol in general and all those sorts of things?
Yeah, I mean, I think sharing stories is always a really powerful way. To say, this is what happened to me and this is my experience and I'm just like everybody else. I'm nothing out of the ordinary. I think also, I mean, I never take an anti-alcohol position personally.
Me too.
I think, the alcohol's just the substance in the same way as gambling or food or sex or whatever the thing is that you happen to get addicted to.
And the more you try and ban the thing or tell people what to do, the more they don't do it.
I'm not in with the telling people what to do because there's the rebel in me. I just go, nah, disengage from that message. So I think though we definitely do need to be more compassionate towards people with addiction. There was that SBS series, The Addicted, I loved. And they had an amazing I think it was over 4 weeks showing people about how it needs to be a compassionate approach. It needs to be seen as a health issue as opposed to a criminal or personal or moral failing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just think also it doesn't hurt to, because all I want to advocate for is essentially choice.
Yeah.
I just want people to be able to go out, not have a drink if they don't want one, have a drink if they want one, whichever you want to do.
Yeah. And feel comfortable in that choice, you know. Yeah.
But just don't give other people shit about it.
Yeah.
You know, with the disclaimer that I used to be terrible myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm kind of, you know, but now I can see that I'm on the other side, how, you know, because times when I try not to drink, and because people around me, and it's my responsibility at the end of the day, but if you're trying not to drink and someone says, oh, go on, you know, don't be so boring, I would always cave.
Yeah.
I had zero. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm leaving the car, you know.
So
yep,
funny.
I've got something on tomorrow at 6 o'clock. Oh, well, never mind. Let's get completely hammered. So I just think if people can just stop and pause a little bit and think about, you know, what that other person might be going through, just or where they're at. And I think also, you know, I use this example quite a bit, like around vegetarianism and veganism.
Yeah.
It used to be a massive thing to be either of those things, and it was a right pain in the ass because you could never get the things that you wanted. And now it's commonplace. You can go to the supermarket, you've got an array of stuff available to you. Yep, okay, great, you're a vegetarian. Well, no one cares. You know, like it's just not a big deal. I'd like to see the drinking go that way in terms of the social pressure.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Again, I couldn't agree more. So, yeah, we're a champion of everything that you're putting down. We're picking it up. So yeah, it's awesome stuff. So everybody, make sure you check out Untoxicated. Untoxicated.
Yeah.
Can't talk today, Jesus. But
right. It's the cold.
That's right.
Frozen your tongue.
That's right. No, it's really like, because I've been doing so many shows in the last couple of days, it's just people will roll their eyes and think, how could that be difficult? But when you have to talk all day and think about things, it just drives me insane. So anyway, but yeah, what you're doing, it's amazing.
Thank you.
I really, really love it. So encourage everyone to check it out. I'll make sure I have all the stuff in the show notes, but where's the best place for people to find you and everything that you guys are doing?
I would just go to the website, which is Untoxicated. So that's UN, not IN, untoxicated.com.au. And basically it's points you into any direction for anything that you want that we do. Awesome.
Hey, Faye Lawrance, everybody, superstar. Thanks, mate.
Oh, thanks, Jack. It's been lovely talking to you.
Talk again soon. Bye.
Thanks for having me on. See ya.
Hey YouTube watcher, thanks for watching this video and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you and your family are doing well in these extraordinary times. I also want to ask you, can you please subscribe and hit the bell notification? We're really launching into our YouTube channel this year and want to build our audience so that we can progress through the ranks and basically get the message of recovery and hope and change and all that good stuff out there to as many people as we can. So we would love it if you would consider it and subscribe and help us out. Also, for anyone seeking help and information and resources, we've put together 100% free online course that you can access, link in the description. So if you are looking for help, hope that, you know, is something that can help you out as well. Until next time, see you in the next video. Peace.